For many years, Earth had watched the stars. Humans sent satellites, telescopes, and messages into space, always asking the same question: is anyone out there? But no answer ever came. People started to believe they were alone. Some were happy, others were disappointed. But deep down, everyone thought, if aliens did exist, maybe they were friendly. Maybe they were peaceful. They were wrong. One quiet morning, everything changed. It began with shadows. Huge black shapes moved across the sky, blocking the sun. People thought it was a solar eclipse or maybe a weather event. But then the lights went out. Phones died. Cars stopped moving. Planes disappeared from the radar. Satellites went silent. In just 5 minutes, Earth was cut off from space. Then the sky opened. Hundreds, maybe thousands of alien ships appeared above every major city: New York, Tokyo, Paris, Cairo, Sydney. The ships didn't shoot. They didn't speak. They just hovered like giants watching ants. Panic spread. People screamed in the streets. Some prayed. Some ran. Some stood frozen, staring at the impossible. Finally, a voice came. Not from speakers, not from phones, but inside everyone's head. A cold, deep voice that spoke in every language at once. You are not alone. You were never alone. Surrender, now, and your planet will be spared. The voice was calm, too calm. As if the one speaking didn't see humans as a threat, or even as living things, just pieces to be moved, like toys, like dust. In government war rooms across the world, leaders shouted over each other. Who are they? What do they want? Do we fight or surrender? No one had answers. Every missile system was offline. Every military satellite had gone dark. Earth had never felt so powerless. In one secret base under the Rocky Mountains, a man named Colonel Harris stood in silence, watching the screens go black. He had worked in the military for 30 years. He had seen wars, disasters, rebellions. But he had never seen fear like this. Even the strongest soldiers were shaking. "Do we have anything left?" he asked the technicians. "No, sir," one replied. "They've jammed everything." Harris turned and walked down a quiet hallway, deeper into the mountain. Few people knew where he was going. Fewer knew what was kept down there. Meanwhile, in the cities, things got worse. The alien ships released small machines, floating metal, spheres. They scanned people, hovered near buildings, and sometimes they took people, just floated over them, and in a flash of light the person was gone. No scream, no blood, just vanished. People started to fight back. Some used guns, some threw stones. But nothing worked. The spheres were fast and smart. Bullets bounced off them. One man in Berlin managed to climb on top of a small alien drone. The machine self-destructed, killing him and 3 others around him. Across the world, people begged their governments to do something, to fight. But the governments were just as blind. Every army was helpless. Then came the second message. You are not our enemy. You are the creation of one we once feared. We only want him. Surrender him, and Earth will be left untouched. Everyone was confused. Who was him? A human? A weapon? A leader? Colonel Harris knew. He stood now in front of a large metal door, buried deep under the mountain. 2 guards stood silently beside it. Harris gave them a code. The door hissed. Open. Inside, cold air hit his face. The room was dark, but Harris didn't need light. He had been here before. A glass chamber stood in the center. Inside it, something slept, a boy, or maybe a man. It was hard to tell. His hair was silver, like old moonlight. His skin was pale but unmarked. He had not aged in 50 years. Project Echo, Harris looked through the glass. He remembered the day, this being arrived. Not born, not found, but delivered. By a small, strange object that crashed near Roswell decades ago. Scientists tried to study him, but they couldn't. He didn't breathe, didn't speak, but he lived. They called him a weapon, but he never moved. Until now. The glass chamber began to glow. The boy's eyes opened. Not fast like waking from sleep. Slow. Careful. As if he knew someone was watching. Harris stepped back. "You're awake," he whispered. The being looked at him. His eyes were pitch black like space. He didn't blink. Outside in the rest of the world, more people vanished. More fear spread. Harris knew they were out of time. He reached for the panel beside the glass and typed in the activation code. The being inside the chamber blinked. Once. Then he spoke. "For the first time in decades, they found me." Harris stared at him. "Who are they?" The being didn't answer. "Can you stop them?" Still no answer. But then slowly he sat up. The chamber opened with a loud hiss. Cold steam spilled out. The being stepped forward, barefoot on the steel floor. He looked no different from a young man, maybe 20, maybe less. But something about him felt wrong. Not evil. Not cruel. Just old. Like something that had seen too much. Harris whispered, "What do we call you now?" The being tilted his head. "I was made to destroy them. I was Earth's answer. But you locked me away." "We were afraid," Harris admitted. The being looked at the ceiling as if he could see the ships above. They should be afraid now. Outside, the sky turned red. The real war had just begun. The world had stopped breathing. Every screen showed the same thing. Massive alien ships floating above cities, waiting like vultures. The second message from the aliens was clear. "We want one being. Give him to us, and Earth will be spared." But no one knew who they wanted. No one, except a small group inside a hidden military base buried under the Rocky Mountains. Colonel Harris stood beside the strange being known only as Echo. He wasn't in chains. He wasn't held by guards. He simply stood in silence, his black eyes staring at the ceiling, as if he could still see the sky beyond the mountain rock. "Is it really you they want?" Harris asked. Echo didn't move. His voice was quiet. "They're afraid of me. That's why they came with weapons, not peace." Harris looked at him carefully. "But what are you?" Echo turned slowly. "You already know. 50 years ago, a strange object fell from the sky. Not a ship, not a rock. Something, smooth, black, and alive. When scientists opened it, they found a small child inside. Human, but not exactly. His blood was different. His brain too fast. His body didn't age. He was never sick, never afraid. The project was top secret. Only a handful of people ever saw him. They didn't give him a name, just a title. Project Echo. For years they studied him. Some believed he was a gift. Others believed he was a threat. Eventually they locked him away, deep underground, frozen in time in a glass chamber. Until today. Echo walked through the metal halls of the base now, his bare feet silent on the cold floor. Lights flickered as he passed. Cameras glitched. Every screen he looked at turned to static. The soldiers who saw him didn't speak. They just stepped back, eyes wide with something between fear and awe. The world was ending. And this was Earth's last chance. In the command room, Harris stood in front of the large war map. Red dots showed alien activity in every part of the world. Every military satellite was blind. Nuclear codes were useless. Even their best weapons were just toys against this enemy. One general whispered, "Do you really think he can stop them?" "I don't know," Harris said, "but he's the only thing we have left." Echo walked into the room. The generals turned to face him. For a moment there was silence. He looked at the map, then at the people. "They're watching," he said. "Who?" One officer asked. "The ones in orbit. The ones inside your minds." Everyone froze. "What do you mean inside our minds?" Another asked. Echo stared at him. "You've already felt it. The headaches, the dreams, The voices, they're not speaking with sound. They're planting fear like seeds. Harris stepped forward. Can you stop them? Echo didn't answer. Instead, he walked toward a sealed door in the corner of the room. Harris quickly moved to block him. That's the vault. We keep our most dangerous tech inside. Echo looked him in the eye. You built those weapons using what you found from the crash site, using pieces of them. I need it. The vault was opened. Inside were strange machines, weapons built using alien material, energy guns, scanner helmets, anti-gravity mines. All untested, all too dangerous to use. Until now. Echo reached for a small object at the back of the room. It looked like a metal bracelet. Old. Worn. But when he touched it, the device lit up. This was mine, he said. The bracelet wrapped around his wrist on its own, clicking in place like it had been waiting. Lights glowed under his skin. What does it do? Someone asked. Echo looked at them all. It makes them remember why they're afraid. Suddenly, alarms rang through the base. One of the ships had moved. Fast. Too fast, a beam of light shot through the sky, hitting a base in eastern Russia. Then silence. When the smoke cleared, the entire facility was gone. Just a black crater in the ice. Everyone turned to Echo. He didn't flinch. They warned you once, he said. They won't ask again. Back in orbit, the alien commanders watched Echo's movements. One of them spoke in a tongue older than Earth's oldest language. He has awakened. Another answered, he is not complete. He is still young. Third voice whispered, even young he is death. Then, for the first time in this entire invasion, they felt something strange. Fear. On Earth, Echo stood at the launch bay doors. Outside, the sky was dark, not with clouds but with shadow from the ships above. He turned to Harris one last time. I don't fight for you. I don't fight for them. I fight because I choose to. Harris nodded. Then fight as a free being. Echo smiled faintly. The launch doors opened. Wind rushed in. The world watched on hacked screens as the strange figure rose from the mountain, floating into the air without wings or rockets. Children pointed at the sky. Old men wept. The message from the aliens came again. But this time, it was different. We no longer seek war. We seek to survive. But it was too late. Earth's real weapon was awake. Echo floated high above the ground, looking down at the world he had never truly seen. Below him, people pointed, screamed, prayed. The alien ships moved slowly now. They were no longer bold, no longer silent. Something had changed. They knew. Echo was awake, but Echo was not just awake, he was remembering. Memories came like waves crashing into his mind, sharp, bright, strange. He closed his eyes and let them in. He saw a place that wasn't Earth, a sky with two suns, mountains that floated, a city made of metal that sang when the wind passed through it, and beings, tall, glowing, smooth-skinned, with eyes like glass. They looked like gods, but they were not kind. Echo was inside a white room. Machines buzzed around him. Voices spoke in a language not made for humans. He wasn't born there. He was made, designed, built from DNA that wasn't just alien, but something stolen from Earth. A child created to bridge two worlds, to survive both. He saw himself growing inside a tube, not crying, not breathing, just floating in blue liquid. Every day, machines tested him, shaped his mind, taught him languages, showed him stars, taught him how to fight, not with weapons, but with thoughts. He remembered his creators. They didn't call him child. They called him Echo Unit 9. The first 8 had failed. Too weak, too human. But Echo was perfect. He remembered the day he escaped. There was fire, screams. Something had gone wrong. A virus? A rebellion? Echo didn't understand it all, but he remembered stealing a small ship. He remembered Earth's stars in the distance. He remembered falling through the sky. The crash. Then the humans. They found him in a crater. They took him, studied him, feared him, just like his creators. And in the end, they locked him away. His eyes opened again. Now, above Earth, those same creators had returned, not to welcome him, not to take him home. They came to erase him, because Echo was a mistake, a powerful one. Below, in the control room, Colonel Harris watched Echo on the screen. His body was glowing slightly now. The bracelet on his wrist pulsed, with strange light. One of the officers said, "Sir, he's not human." "No," Harris said. "He's more." The alien fleet moved. One of the ships fired a slow beam toward a city. It wasn't a full attack, just a warning. Echo turned his head. His body flickered like a broken light bulb. And then, he moved. He flew faster than any jet, slicing through the air like a missile. The alien beam was still falling when he reached the ship. And then, silence. Every camera lost the image. Satellites went dark again. The world held its breath. In space, Echo stood on the alien ship's hull. There was no air, no gravity, but he didn't need either. The aliens inside the ship panicked. Systems failed, doors locked, lights flickered. Echo reached out his hand. The metal bent, screamed, folded like paper. He spoke one word: remember. The ship exploded, but not in fire, not in sound. It folded inward, as if erased from reality. Backs. On Earth, people stared at the sky. One of the ships was simply gone. No one spoke. The alien fleet began to move away. Slowly, carefully. Inside the alien command ship, the High Council argued. "He was a child when we lost him," one said. "Now he is a weapon." Another added, "He carries our knowledge, but also their emotions. He feels things. He chooses." A third voice trembled. "We made a god and left him behind." But one of them, the commander, was not afraid. "He will return," it said. "He remembers us, but he doesn't yet remember why he was created." It activated something on the screen, a signal, a memory key. Far away, Echo suddenly stopped in the sky. His body jerked. His eyes widened. More memories came, darker ones. City being destroyed by his own hands. Children running from him. A planet cracked open like an egg. He screamed, not from pain but from realization. He had done things, terrible things, before Earth, before the crash. He wasn't just made as a bridge between species. He was made as a test for war, to see if a being like him could destroy everything. And he had passed. He had wiped out 3 planets before escaping. But Earth didn't know that, and now neither did Echo. Until now. He fell from the sky, landing deep in the desert. Dust rose for miles. No one could reach him. Not even satellites could track his energy. Colonel Harris received the report. "Echo is down." The room went quiet. "Alive?" he asked. "No signal," they replied. "But no explosion either. He's just gone." Harris stared at the map. The aliens hadn't attacked again. Not because they were kind, because they were waiting to see what Echo would do next. And Echo was finally remembering who he really was. For 3 days the world waited. After Echo fell from the sky, no one had seen him. Not the military, not the satellites, not even the aliens. It was as if he had vanished. Some thought he died, others thought he was hiding. But deep down, people were afraid of something worse. Maybe Echo was changing. Colonel Harris didn't sleep. He sat in the command room staring at a blank screen. All over the globe, people stayed indoors. Cities were quiet. No planes flew. No leaders made speeches. Everyone was holding their breath. Above Earth, the alien ships hovered silently. They didn't leave, but they didn't attack either. They were watching, waiting. Inside their flagship, the alien commander stood in front of a screen showing Earth's surface. "He has gone silent," one officer said. The commander replied, "He is remembering. His past is returning to him." Another asked, "What if he chooses their side?" The commander's voice became colder. "Then Earth dies." They activated a weapon. It wasn't a beam. It wasn't fire. It was sound. A low hum began to spread across the sky. Humans couldn't hear it, but animals did. Dogs barked wildly. Birds crashed into buildings. Whales beached themselves on shores. Then, slowly, humans began to feel it too. Headaches, nosebleeds, visions, nightmares. The sound wasn't just noise. It was alive. It was meant to break the human mind. In hospitals across the world, people began screaming. Some clawed at their eyes. Some whispered words in alien languages. Some simply froze and never moved again, and then Echo woke up. He was in the desert, lying in a crater. Sand had covered part of his body, but he wasn't breathing. He didn't need to. His eyes opened, and they were not black anymore. They glowed white. The memories were clear now. He had destroyed before. He had been used as a weapon, but this time it was different. This time he felt it. He felt the pain of the people, the fear in their dreams, the pressure in their minds. He stood up, and the sand around him shook. His voice echoed across the sky without speakers or satellites. Enough. Every alien ship heard it. And for the first time, they responded. A ship above Brazil fired first. A bright green beam shot toward the Earth, fast and deadly. It hit a small village. Gone. Just smoke and silence. Then a second beam, and a third. The first strike had begun. Colonel Harris slammed his fist on the table. "Where is he?" A soldier pointed at a screen. "We found him. He's moving." Echo was flying across the sky. No wings, no engines, just light. He wasn't going toward the aliens, he was going to the village that was just destroyed. When he arrived, the ground was still warm. Black smoke filled the air. Nothing had survived. Echo knelt down and touched the ashes. For a moment, he said, "Nothing." But his body began to glow again. This time, it wasn't white. It was blue. He rose into the air and looked up. The ship that had fired the beam was still above him. He raised his hand and crushed it, not with a weapon, not with fire, with thought. The ship twisted in the air like paper. Metal bent, lights exploded, and in seconds, it was gone. The other ships began to move. They fired at once, but Echo didn't run. He caught the beams with his hands, held them, in the air like strings of light, and then he threw them back. 2 more ships exploded in the sky. On Earth, people cheered. For the first time in days, they felt hope. Maybe Echo was on their side, but Echo wasn't celebrating. He flew higher, faster, straight into space, toward the alien flagship. Inside the command ship, alarms screamed. "He's coming," one officer shouted. The commander stood calmly. "Let him." As Echo reached the edge of Earth's atmosphere, his mind was filled with voices. Not human, not alien, something else. "Return to us. You are not one of them." Echo answered with one thought. "I choose who I protect." Smashed into the flagship. The ship's walls bent as he entered. Guards fired weapons, but the blasts didn't touch him. He walked through them like smoke. The commander stood waiting. "You have changed," it said. Echo stared at him. "I learned something you never could." "What's that?" "Mercy." Then the ship shook. Echo was not destroying it. He was taking control of it. He placed his hand on the main core. Light surged through the ship. Every weapon turned off. Every signal stopped. The mind attack ended. Earth was quiet again. But Echo didn't stop. He spoke into the minds of all the alien ships. "Leave this planet, or face what I was built to become." The ships didn't argue. They didn't fire again. One by one, they vanished. Echo stood alone in the quiet ship, surrounded by silence. But something inside him still burned. He had won. But he didn't feel like a hero. He felt watched. Far away, beyond known space, something else had heard his voice. Something older, something worse. And it had just opened its eyes. Echo stood at the center of the alien flagship. The walls around him were silent, dead. The ship was no longer flying. It was drifting slowly through space. He had shut it down with a single touch. He could have destroyed it. But he didn't. Instead, he waited. Because something was coming. Something worse. His body was still glowing, but weaker now. Using his power had taken something from him. Energy, memory, maybe even pieces of his own soul. And deep inside him, there was a strange feeling he had never known before. Fear. Back on Earth, people began to rebuild. The alien ships had disappeared. The sky was clear again. World leaders came out of hiding. Some called Echo a savior. Others still whispered that he was a weapon waiting to explode. But no one knew where he was. Colonel Harris tried to track him, but there was no signal. Nothing on radar. Satellites found only empty space. Until one night, a strange image appeared on every screen on Earth, just for a few seconds. A black circle, a blinking red eye in the middle, then it vanished. That same night, Echo felt something. Pull not physical, not from any planet, from beyond the edge of space. He turned his eyes toward the stars, and he remembered a name he hadn't heard in 1,000 years. The Watchers. They were older than the stars. Not aliens, not machines. Something else, something forgotten. When the aliens first created Echo, they used stolen DNA, half from Earth, half from the stars. But what no one knew was that one piece didn't come from either. It came from them, the Watchers. They had been silent for eons, floating between galaxies, watching life grow and die. They didn't speak. They didn't invade. They waited. For one thing, for him. He was their experiment, their tool. And now, their signal had been activated. They were waking up. Echo left the alien flagship. His body began to repair itself as he flew through the cold, dark space, faster than light, heading toward a point where no map had ever reached. He passed broken planets, dead stars, fields of space wreckage, remains of civilizations that had disappeared long ago. And then, he found it. A black structure floating in nothing. No lights, no heat, just a quiet pulse like a heart that had never stopped beating. Echo floated closer. The moment he reached it, the structure opened like an eye. And it spoke. Not with sound, with memory. Suddenly, Echo was falling, inside his own mind. He saw a world before time. Creatures made of shadow and light. Civilizations rising and falling like waves. The Watchers had seen it all. And whenever something powerful appeared, they marked it. Echo wasn't the first, but he might be the last. You were made to test the limits of life, the voice said inside his mind. You were made to see if creation can survive destruction. I'm not a test anymore, Echo replied. The voice answered, then you are something worse, a mistake. Inside the structure something moved. Long limbs, tall shapes. They weren't alive in the way humans understood. They didn't breathe. They didn't blink. But they saw. One of the Watchers stepped forward. You chose to protect. That was not part of your design. Another said, you broke the cycle. A third whispered, now we must correct you. Echo's body burned with blue light. His mind raced. He was strong, yes. But here, in their domain, he wasn't sure if he was strong enough. The Watchers didn't attack with weapons, they attacked with truth. They showed him more memories, some his, some stolen from other versions of him, from other timelines, other galaxies. In one, he destroyed Earth. In another, he became a god and ruled over humans like a tyrant. In another, he begged the Watchers to erase him. Echo fell to his knees. The visions were endless. But then, something strange happened. He heard a voice. Not from the Watchers. From Earth. It was a child's voice. Echo, the voice said. You're not a mistake. The voice grew louder. You saved us. More voices came. From cities. From villages. From space stations. From Earth. Somehow the people were reaching him. Through satellites, through thoughts, through belief. The Watchers hesitated. Echo stood up slowly. You call me a mistake, he said. Because I chose mercy. Because I refused to destroy. His eyes turned white again. But that's what makes me more than a weapon. He raised both hands. The entire black structure began to shake. The Watchers moved forward, angrily, silently, but it was too late. Echo had changed, not just in power, in purpose. With a scream that echoed through the void, he released a pulse of light that cracked the Watchers' domain. The black walls melted, the vision stopped, the voices faded, and the structure vanished. Echo floated alone in the dark, his body barely holding together. He had won, but he had also woken up something even deeper. The Watchers weren't the only ones who had been watching. Far beyond, something else opened its eyes, something even the Watchers feared, and it had just found him. Echo floated through space, his body barely glowing now. The black structure where the Watchers lived had vanished, shattered by his will. But the silence it left behind wasn't peaceful. It was wrong. The stars around him had changed. Familiar constellations were missing. The galaxy felt colder, emptier. Something was off. He turned toward Earth, flying back through the darkness. But the journey felt strange. Space seemed stretched, distorted. When he finally reached Earth's orbit, he stopped. His eyes widened. The planet was there, but it wasn't the same. The oceans were darker. The cities had no lights. The moon had deep cracks across its surface, like something had clawed at it. Echo slowly descended into the atmosphere, clouds bending around him. He hovered over New York, no movement, no people, no sound. The buildings were still standing, but covered in vines, rust, and dust. Like 100 years had passed. But that wasn't possible. He had only been gone for minutes or hours. He flew through the city, searching, nothing. No humans, no vehicles, no power. It was like Earth had been forgotten. Then, a voice, not loud, not in his mind. Real. A whisper. From a small alleyway behind a broken bus, a little girl stepped out. She wore old clothes, torn, dirty, but her eyes glowed faintly, like his. Echo, she said. He landed gently in front of her. How do you know my name? The girl tilted her head. Everyone knows. You left. And then, they came. Who? She pointed to the sky, the hollow star. Echo turned, and there it was. High above Earth, just beyond the clouds, hung a shape. It wasn't a ship. It wasn't a planet. It was a hole. A circle of blackness darker than space, surrounded by thin, jagged arms that pulsed with red light. It didn't move. It just stared. Echo felt something cold crawl up his spine. He whispered, "That wasn't there before?" The girl nodded. "It followed you. When you broke the Watchers, it woke up." Echo reached into her mind. Carefully. He saw flashes of what happened after he left Earth. The people had cheered, celebrated. Then, one night the sky tore open, and the hollow star appeared. It didn't speak. It didn't fire weapons. It just hovered. And every night people disappeared, first by the dozens, then by the thousands. One morning, there were no governments left. No cities. No hope. Just the hollow star watching. Echo clenched his fists. "Why didn't I feel it?" he asked. The girl whispered, "Because it doesn't speak to power. It speaks to fear." He looked back at the hollow star, and for a moment, just a moment, he saw something inside it. A shape, a tall, thin figure. Watching him, Echo rose into the sky faster and faster, heading straight toward it. As he got closer, the air grew heavy. Gravity twisted. His thoughts felt cloudy, and then the hollow star opened, not like a door, like a mouth. A pulse of black light struck Echo. He screamed as his body spun, mind torn open by visions. He saw himself walking through empty Earths, thousands of them, all with dead skies, all under the hollow star. He saw humans turn to ash in their sleep. He saw time stop. He saw himself, older, broken, serving something in the dark. Then he heard it. The first voice from the hollow star. It didn't speak a name. It showed it, and Echo understood. This wasn't just a creature. It was a memory trap, a living hole in reality, feeding on timelines, feeding on what could have been. It had no form, no body, only hunger, and Echo had led it here. He fought back. His blue light flared, but it barely held. The hollow star sent another pulse. This one tried to rewrite him, his memories, his purpose, his identity. But then, the little girl's voice echoed again. "You're not just a weapon," she said. "You're hope." Something inside Echo reignited. He screamed, and his light turned white hot. He reached deep into the hollow star, ignoring the pain, the confusion, the lies, and he found something buried inside it, a piece of his DNA, a piece of himself, taken long ago by the Watchers, used to open the hollow star in the first place. It had been waiting for him, all along, but Echo was no longer that version. He had chosen life, mercy, purpose. With one final surge of energy, he pulled the DNA out of the star, and the hollow star shrank, screamed, then cracked. The sky lit up with red lightning. The jagged arms broke apart, and slowly, the hollow star vanished. But Echo didn't cheer. He fell from the sky, burning. He hit the ground near the little girl, barely conscious. She ran to him. "Did you win?" she asked. Echo looked at the sky. The hollow star was gone. But stars were still missing, and in the silence he heard one last whisper. Not alone. The hollow star was gone. The sky was clear again. But Earth did not cheer. It was too quiet. The cities were still empty. The lights still dark. The people still missing. Echo lay on the ground, weak and broken. His energy was fading. He had used everything to destroy the hollow star. The little girl stayed beside him, watching the sky with tired eyes. "Is it over?" she asked. Echo slowly shook his head. "No, I don't think it ever was." That night, a strange hum returned to the sky. Not from space, from beneath the earth. The ground trembled softly at first, then stronger. Echo sat up. His bones ached, his hands shook, but his eyes still glowed. He looked toward the horizon. There was fire. Not from war, from arrival. The ground split open near what was once the Grand Canyon. A hole appeared, deep, wide, alive. And something rose from it. Not machines, not aliens, not monsters. Something older, something forgotten. They were tall, wrapped in dark golden robes that moved without wind. Their skin shimmered like cracked stone and starlight. Their eyes had no pupils, just white glow like Echo's, but colder. The little girl hid behind Echo. "Who are they?" Echo's voice was tight. "I don't know, but they're not here for Earth." One of the creatures stepped forward, floating inches above the ground. It tilted its head as if studying him. Then it spoke. "Unit 0001E. Core fragment returned. Activation complete." The words hit Echo like thunder. His mind raced. They weren't invaders. They were his creators. Even before the Watchers, before the aliens, They were the first, the final species. A race so old, their cities had become stars. So advanced, they didn't leave ruins. They left echoes in space. They had created him not for war, not for peace, but as a key, a living access code to something locked long ago. The lead figure raised a hand. Come home. Echo stood, weak, but tall. Earth is my home now. The figure said nothing, but the air grew cold. You have changed your coding, the lead one said. You allowed feelings, protection, mercy. I made my own choice. That is forbidden. Echo clenched his fists. Then I forbid you. For a moment the sky twisted. Clouds pulled into a spiral above them. Time seemed to slow. Birds froze in midair. Then came the sound. Not loud, not angry. Final. The final species moved forward, and with them came gravity itself. Echo fought back. He rose into the air, light blazing from his hands. He struck first, a beam of white fire. It hit the first figure, and vanished. The creature absorbed it without moving. Then it raised its arm. The ground beneath Echo cracked. He dropped, gasping. His powers weren't working. The final species had built him. And now, they were undoing him. Every part of his body screamed. His thoughts blurred. Memories began to fall apart like broken glass. The girl screamed, Echo, but she couldn't reach him. The lead figure placed its hand on his chest. We will fix the error. Remove the soul. Echo whispered, I am not your error. Then, something unexpected happened. The earth resisted. The sky turned red, not from danger, but rage. The trees shook. The wind screamed. The very ground pushed back, because Echo had protected it, and now Earth protected him. Energy flowed up through the soil, into Echo's broken body. A different kind of power. Natural. Wild. Human. He stood again. And this time, he didn't glow with alien light. He burned with Earth's fire. His eyes turned orange, then gold, and he hit back hard. The lead figure stumbled for the first time in a billion years. You are no longer a key, it said. You are a storm. Echo replied. Then, try to open me. The fight shook the world. The final species summoned gravity, time, black holes. Echo answered with lightning, storms, flame, and thought. The little girl watched from a distance, eyes wide. She was afraid but also smiling, because this was no longer a war between gods. This was a fight for freedom, and Echo was winning. But just as he knocked down the final attacker, everything stopped. The sky split again. But this time, no ship came, no creature, no light. Just a voice, older than all of them. It whispered only one thing. Return what was stolen. The final species froze. Echo froze. The whole earth held its breath, because even they didn't know that voice, and somewhere far beyond the stars, something else was coming. Not a weapon, not a being, a judge. The sky had stopped moving. The stars didn't shine. Time itself seemed frozen. The final species, those ancient creators of Echo, stood still. Even they were afraid, because the voice that had spoken didn't come from any world. It came from the center of the universe. It wasn't loud, it wasn't angry, but it carried the weight of forever. Return what was stolen, it said again. And then the world began to vanish, not burn, not collapse, vanish. Bit by bit, the ground faded. The sky peeled away. Trees disappeared into dust. Cities became whispers. Echo stood at the center of it all, still glowing with Earth's energy. The little girl held his hand tightly, but her body began to flicker. Echo, she said softly. What's happening? He didn't answer, because even he didn't know. The final species turned to leave, but the void stopped them. They couldn't escape. Then the light came. Not fire, not energy. Judgment. A shape appeared. Not a god, not a monster. A shadow wrapped in white light without face or body. But its voice spoke to every living mind. You tampered with the code of existence, it said to the final species. You created a living being to unlock what should have stayed locked. The final species spoke together, their voices layered. We followed the design. You rewrote the design, the voice replied. Then it turned to Echo. You were made, then broken, then reborn. Echo stood tall, still holding the child. I chose my own path, the voice paused. That is why you are here, that is why this is the last trial. Suddenly Echo was alone. The girl was gone. The earth was gone. He stood in a black void, floating, weightless. In front of him, himself, but not the same. This version wore alien armor. His eyes were red. His hands dripped with fire. You could have been me, the red-eyed Echo said. I could have destroyed Earth, ruled the stars, but I didn't, Echo replied. Another version appeared. This one was chained, silent, broken. You could have stayed there prisoner, it whispered. More versions came. Thousands of them, some kind, some cruel, some dead, some gods, some monsters. You are all possibilities, the voice said. But only one can remain. Echo clenched his fists. I know who I am. The voice asked. Then speak your truth. Echo looked at all the versions of himself. I was made by fear, he said. But I chose mercy. I was designed for war, but I chose peace. I was called a weapon. But I became a shield. The red-eyed Echo laughed. Then why do you still fight? Echo looked at him. Because peace needs protecting. The void rumbled. The light grew brighter, and one by one, the other echoes began to fade. Only he remained. The voice returned. You have passed the last trial. The stars returned. The earth reformed beneath his feet. The girl stood there again, smiling, tears in her eyes. The final species were gone. The hollow star, forgotten. The watchers erased. Only Echo remained. But he was no longer a weapon. He was no longer a key. He was something new, a guardian. As the skies cleared, people began to return. The light came back. Cities slowly woke up, and in the clouds, a final message appeared. Let no one create what they cannot love. Echo stood on a rooftop watching the sunrise. The girl beside him whispered, So, is it really over? He looked at her, then at the stars. For now, he said. But if the darkness ever comes again... He opened his hand. A small flame floated above it, pure, warm, alive. I'll be ready. And so Earth was saved, not by a machine, not by a god, but by a mistake that chose to become human.